Public Relations, and I'll be your host for today. I do want to start off by saying this is a virtual press conference, and hopefully we've got all the kinks knocked out by now, but there could be some technical difficulties. So if that does occur, just bear with us and we'll do our best. First off, we'd like to thank our Austin City Council members for joining us and the ones who are in attendance today, as well as the Austin for All People volunteer leadership. We also have several Austin citizens who have taken time out of their day to show their support for this issue. So we want to thank you all for joining us. Today, we will be discussing the proposed charter amendment, Proposition F, which aims to establish a mayor-council form of government, often referred to as strong mayor. Now, this amendment will be on the May 1 ballot, and we're here today to hear why a majority of our city council members and Austin for All People's leadership oppose Prop F. Now, we will only be discussing Prop F today, as it is the only amendment that Austin for All People have taken a stance on. Now, before we turn it over to our speakers, let's hear from a number of concerned citizens who also care deeply about this issue.
On May 1st, the citizens of Austin will decide whether to change our form of government. We oppose Proposition F.
Why would we change our form of city government away from what got us to where we are today? And at the end of the day, that's really the reason why I'm a co-chair, is to help preserve who we are as a city.
Those proposing Proposition F want you to believe that our current form of government is racist. That is not only wrong, but is an insult to people who live the Black experience, do anti-racism work, and have died in this fight for racial equality.
I don't understand how anyone can say that the city manager form of government is inherently racist. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama during segregation days. I know racism when I see it. Under a certain leadership, it could function that way, but function does not make it inherently that way.
I'm opposed to Proposition F because the entire process has lacked transparency. There's been no opportunity for public debate. There have been no focus groups. Why these individuals are pushing so hard for the adoption of a form of government that's so radically different from what this city has had for decades, and which has served our city well.
And I hear it from the residents and my constituents, specifically in my district, but it's all across the city. They feel like when they have a concern, if the mayor doesn't agree, no matter what the city council would do, the mayor could veto it. Because if this strong mayor passes, if Proposition F passes, your voice will never again have the amount of power that it does today.
Labor believes Prop F is nothing more than a veiled attempt to consolidate power and unfortunately put frontline and essential workers at risk. That's why the Labor's International Union of North America is fighting to make sure this does not pass.
I think the system works the way it works right now. You have a certified professional in the city manager take charge of the administration, and you have a council of community leaders and people who are invested in their districts and know what goes on, making the decisions. And it's a perfect balance. It's best of both worlds. It gets things done.
For over 100 years, the City of Austin has governed ourselves with a strong city manager form of government, and it's been successful. And along with the recent change, only 7 years ago, to go to district representation, those work together. And we feel like consolidating that into a single position with the mayor is not good for the citizens of Austin.
Historically, they're more subject to corruption and fraud than the council manager system. And the reason for that is that they can bestow favors and create obligations that people to them.
Public health and public safety are two of the most important things that a city does, and we don't need to bring in politics into that. And that's what I'm afraid would happen if we vote for a strong mayor.
I am a common sense citizen of Austin who cares about the attractiveness, the economic viability of the city, but without it going overboard, and I oppose Proposition F. F is in failure.
So I think it's important for voters to understand, if this goes through, your mayor is the one who's going to put department heads in each department. Man, don't Chicago my Austin. Keep cronyism out of City Hall.
I think a broad coalition has come up and spoken against the strong mayor form of government. We are all unified in agreeing that a strong mayor would limit power from the people and give it to one person. And that is something that we can all agree is not good.
How are you supposed to know what's going on in your community? Who are you supposed to go and talk to? So for me, at first, I felt angry. I felt frustrated. I felt like I wasn't considered in this. And I feel like that's not what Austin is.
Have you voted in a May election? Almost nobody does. And that really makes me question why we need to do this now. And if we're trying to be progressive and we're trying to represent democracy, why are we putting it on such a low turnout election?
8 years ago, we adopted a council form of government that represented each of those cultural, economic, and ethnic diversity on our council. Why would we ever vote to put all of that collective voice into one person? That one person would then have no need to either respect or listen to those diverse voices. I oppose Proposition F because I believe the collective wisdom of those voices is better for Austin.
I've been around city government for over 35 years. I've seen 9 mayors, I've seen 7 city managers, and this system works for us. And why would we tinker with it now?
By having the strong mayor, it would take away the hard work that the city of Austin, the community has done to bring the 10-1 in, where we all have fair and equal representation.
I was the chairman of the Charter Commission, which adopted and passed through the single-member districts. We had decades of input from people on this, and it finally got done. This other strong mayor form of government, not now. I don't know why it's needed.
The manager form of government evolved as a reaction to excesses of the strong mayor. And we've seen recently what an aspiring autocrat can do to forms of government. I just don't want to open that door.
We all know this is bad for the city of Austin, and all of us together can make a difference, and we can win this thing and keep Austin, Austin.
So it is clear that there is united opposition to Proposition F from across the political spectrum. And we want to thank you to all of those who spoke out. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Austin for All People's Director of Community Engagement, Nika Ramsey.
Thank you, Stacy. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd first like to introduce Austin for All People co-chair, Jesus Garza. Jesus is a former Austin city manager serving from 1994 to 2002. He also served as CEO of Seton Healthcare Family. Jesus?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, be here today with you. I'm proud to be one of the 4 people co-chairing the citizens group called Austin for All People, which formed about 3 months ago to educate the public about the significant problems Austin would face if we switch our form of government to a strong mayor structure. What strikes me about the video we just saw is the unique mix of people and groups they represent. It's not often that business and labor come together on issues in Austin, but its push to change a strong mayor form of government has done just that. Nobody seems to like proposal except the people that are proposing it. Proposition F is garnering opposition from all over town. Proposing a switch to a strong mayor include a wide range of interests. The Real Estate Council of Austin, the Liberal Austin Democrats, the Central Labor Council, Unite Here Local 23, LIUNA, Local 1095, the Austin EMS Association, SOS, and the Sierra Club. That list is growing by the day. And the best I can tell, Proposition F has not garnered a single resolution support from a significant group. And the reason is simple. This is a proposition that would extraordinarily damage democracy in Austin. Instituting a so-called strong mayor system means that all the power at City Hall is essentially consolidated in one person, a mayor elected to 2 4-year terms. This mayor would be able to appoint virtually every department head in our government, from Austin Energy to airport to zoning and planning. That means appointees would be the personification of political cronyism. A great deal of power would be taken away from your elected city council members, many of whom are here today. The mayor would set the entire city council agenda, and not even attend council meetings. The public, therefore, would have an extremely hard time having access to the most powerful leader in the city. Perhaps most troubling is the mayor would have full veto over everything the council does. And to override that veto would take a 2/3 vote to the city council or a supermajority, an extremely tall political hurdle. Basically, the mayor can do pretty much anything he or she wants to do, and no one can stop it. There would be very little accountability or checks and balances on this power. The bottom line, the council manager form of government works. Studies show that cities with council manager forms of government have better bond ratings and economic health than the strong mayor of big cities that the proponents keep bringing up. I believe many of you will join me in saying that Austin does not want to be or model ourselves after Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, or I hope you'll join me in opposing Proposition F. Now I want to turn it back over to Nico.
Thank you, Jesus. Up next is Austin City Council Member District 2, Vanessa Fuentes. Councilmember Fuentes worked at the Texas State Capitol on criminal justice reform during the 83rd legislative session, and before that, she spent 6 years working for the American Heart Association with a focus in policymaking. Then, Councilmember Fuentes.
Yes, thank you, Nico. Hello, good afternoon. I'm here before you today as a recently elected council member, still within my first 90 days on the job. I'm the second ever Latina to serve on city council, and it's not lost on me the hard-fought progress that our community forged in order for me to win a seat at the city council decision-making table. I believe a strong mayor system does not allow for the type of community input or balanced decision-making that our city benefits from today. Austin's current council manager structure has been essential in equalizing the diverse interests of council while allowing us to focus on a truly representative democracy. Austin is at a crossroads of significant challenges, including the ongoing pandemic, skyrocketing housing prices, and transforming public safety. There's absolutely no evidence that Proposition F will help us better address these challenges and have meaningful conversations needed to create the policies that will successfully guide our community over the years ahead. With just a little over 6 years under our belts in the 10-1 system, which provided us with more minority voices at the table, why would we want to suddenly change the configuration of the table and move away from our current form of government? This would dilute the power of district level representatives. We are in the midst of a pandemic, just a month out from the winter storm disaster. This is not a time for us to shift the dynamic. I recognize all systems are inherently flawed and are not perfect, but I cannot support a change that would weaken the voices like mine, providing district level representation. I am a no on Prop F, and I hope you'll join me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fuentes. Next up is Austin City Councilmember District 3, Sabino Pio Renteria. Councilmember Renteria spent 34 years with IBM as a computer and printer technician. He has served on several boards and participated for 14 years on the Community Development Commission, 8 years as its chair. Councilmember?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Councilmember Pio Renteria. You know, in 2014, after a long struggle for equity in our city, moved to a geographic representation. Single member district has been a long time coming. It was a hard fight. And before that, and starting way back in the 50s, we were demanding a single member district. And we lost the elections and we sued in the court. And they came up in the 70s with a gentleman agreement that reserved 2 seats out of 7 seats for people of color. That all changed in 2014 election cycle. And since the election, our council has continued to become more diverse. A move to strong mayor undermines our city march toward progress. Given the strong mayor veto power over one of our most diverse city council, weakened the voice of community people and add needless barriers between our community and City Hall. This is a move to take away our seat from the table. Vote no for Prop F. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Renteria. Next, we have Austin City Councilmember District 5, Ann Kitchen. Councilmember Kitchen is an attorney and healthcare consultant. She also serves as chair of the City of Austin's Mobility Committee and serves on the Austin Energy Committee, Public Utilities Committee, and vice chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee. Councilmember?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Kitchen, and I'm proud representative of South Austin District 5. I join my colleagues in saying no on Proposition F. It is undemocratic. It concentrates power in one elected official. It undermines our district representation. And it is, I want to talk a bit about South Austin. It takes away voices from our city, as others have said. It takes away our voice in South Austin. You know, I was proud to be vice chair of the Charter Commission that Senator Barrientos mentioned, and proud to help bring district representation after many, many years of struggle, as Councilmember Renteria mentioned. And this negates that. It takes away our voice in South Austin. When I first started serving for District 5, you know, almost 7 years ago, I heard from people who had never touched City Hall. They didn't think City Hall was for them. They didn't think the city listened to them. District representation gives people a voice, a person who is their person that they can reach out to. I want to say one other quick thing about this. When you look at the ballot language, we were we really thought hard about making sure this ballot language was transparent and told people what was happening. As you've heard, it's veto power over all legislation, which includes the budget. And there is no articulated or authority to require the mayor to implement council decisions. So again, there's no evidence that there is some problem that this is going to address. There is no evidence that this will help the city address the challenges that we have in front of us. As Councilmember Fuentes said, you know, the bottom line, if we need anything, we need more voices. We need to listen to people. This is undemocratic, and that is why I oppose it. And I hope you will join me in saying no on Prop F.
Thank you, Councilmember Kitchen. Up next is Austin City Councilmember District 7, Leslie Poole. Councilmember Poole served at the Travis County Constable's Office, was treasurer and member of the executive board of Livable City, and was a co-founder of the Bull Creek Road Coalition. Councilmember?
Thanks, Nico. I'm sure proud to be part of this beautifully diverse company of Austinites to oppose the strong mayor proposition. I first heard that this effort was afoot last summer, just as the realities of the pandemic were sinking in, and before we knew that the virus would in fact be altering our lives so fundamentally, and which of course we all now know only too well. Since that time, and after much thought, discussion, and research, I'm here today to state that I absolutely oppose Proposition F. Here are my top 2 reasons why I oppose Proposition F, the strong mayor charter amendment. First, amassing power and veto authority in one person is undemocratic. True democracy is representation from all voices across the city, each with equal authority and governance. We have that now with our single member district council. And second, the idea of a strong mayor fixing everything is, well, it's magical thinking and it's patriarchal. The actual work of running this city is way harder than that, as we all know. The broad spectrum of opposition to Proposition F demonstrated here today has coalesced seemingly overnight. It was less than 3 months ago. It was this January when word of the initiative became public. The spectrum here today, from business leaders to labor groups, from developers to environmentalists all across our city. The idea of a strong mayor with all that veto power is disliked by all for the simple reason that it gives the mayor of Austin too much power. Please join me in voting no on Proposition F. Thanks. Back to you, Nico.
Thank you, Councilmember Poole. Next, we have Austin City Council Member District 9, Kathy Tovo. Prior to taking office, Councilmember Tovo taught writing and interdisciplinary studies at the college level and worked with Humanities Texas, the state partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Councilmember?
Thank you. Thanks very much. And thanks to everyone who's gathered here together. I'm Kathy Tovo, and I have the honor of serving on the Austin City Council and representing District 9. And I join my council colleagues and important community leaders here today in opposing Proposition F, conceived by private individuals and vetted through a process, as you know, that unfolded during a pandemic. Proposition F would transform Austin's system of representative government. It diminishes your voice and your vote at City Hall, and it hands over too much control over policy and day-to-day workings of your city into the hands of an elected strong mayor. Proposition F is not good government. It takes power away from the people. It's not what's best for Austin, and I urge you to join me in voting no. Proposition F, as my colleagues have articulated, diminishes the power of our representative 10-1 council by giving the mayor the ability to veto council actions. And I've served on council long enough to have seen, and as a community member, having watched before I became a council member, I've seen some differences of opinion between the council and the mayor. And I think it's really important that we have that balance and that balanced elected representatives who are responsive directly to their constituents. The private individuals who brought this forward in the midst of this pandemic would transfer the operations of the city from a professional with management expertise to an elected mayor who may or may not have the necessary skills. You know, Austin is a city with a budget of $4.1 billion and an employee base of more than 13,040 different departments. And in addition to departments like the library and our police department and other public safety arms, the city of Austin also operates its own electric utility, its own water utility, and its own airport. The city managers who we hire here in the city of Austin have the training and expertise that equip them to manage the day-to-day operations of an enterprise this large. And few candidates for the position of a strong mayor would step into the job with anything close to adequate preparation or the skills necessary to run the day-to-day operations well. There's also some potential for politicizing even the most basic city functions, like which streets are going to get sidewalks or which neighborhoods are going to get parks and other amenities. And it could jeopardize some of the city's success, as the mayor, as you know, would be appointing department heads in really critical areas like at our utilities and our airport. Those who are bringing forward this proposal have said that the voters need to be able to hold their government more accountable. Sure, I've served on the council a long time, have been a community member advocating for council actions for a long time, and I've seen that the workings of city government don't always proceed smoothly or as quickly as we would like them to, and important projects can get delayed or even derailed at times. But the city manager is a contracted employee hired and fired by the council. That's a lot of accountability, and it's a lot more than we'd have with an elected mayor because we'd have to wait until that next 4-year election cycle. Labor, neighborhood leaders, business leaders, and others, many others, strongly oppose this measure and the way in which we could really lose some important gains that we've made and that have had broad-based community support here in the city of Austin. Prop F is not good government. It takes power away from the people. It's not best for Austin. And I urge you to vote.
Of David Chapel Missionary Baptist Church in Austin, Texas. He has taught preaching at Baylor University and